Hey everybody, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm having an absolute blast doing these isolated vocal stems, and what I'm doing is I'm doing an analysis, a singing tutorial, and a recording breakdown of how all this stuff was done, okay? Next up is Blondie. The song is called One Way or Another. Now, before I get started too deep into this, I want to set the record straight about the song. A lot of people think it's like her going, I'll get you. But it was actually a song about a stalker. No kidding. She wrote the song about some creepy guy that she felt was stalking her, so she wrote about it. So with a view towards that as we do the lyrics, I want you to really kind of have that in mind as we get along. But let's get started. Please like and subscribe to my channel. That would be super awesome. I have a singing course, and the course is called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. And you guys can find it right here at kentamplinvocalacademy.com, where I also have a singing forum of over 20,000 members, all talking about great singing. Now, what's funny about this is just taking the greatest, most epic songs ever recorded and getting to hear the raw vocal of exactly how it was done. And I think a lot of us have a perception of, that someone sang it really heavy or they over articulated something or there seemed to be a lot more emotion in something. And the proof is in the pudding right here. You can actually really break it down one line at a time, and we can, take a microscope to it, right? So magnifying glass. Anyway, so with that said, I just want to get started and we're just going to do this, man. So let's check it out. Blondie, One Way or Another. This is the single isolated raw vocal. Here we go.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you one way.
Now, I guess it's just me, but I sort of remember her singing this a lot more intense, don't you? One way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you one day, maybe next week, right? There's sort of this, really thick emotion. She's not doing that at all. It's the band that's creating the energy. Now, we've talked a lot about this, but sometimes the vocal creates an amazing amount of energy. Sometimes the band does. Sometimes they work together. But in this case, listen to it again. By the way, she's writing the song about a stalker. So it's going to be kind of funny now, with a view towards that as you listen to this. But check it out one more time. Here we go.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you one way or
cool.
another.
So I can kind of imagine, she's real gentle on it. So for you ladies out there, one way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you one day, maybe next week, right? So she's kind of like almost dreaming it or thinking about the nightmare of it. To me, now that I hear the perspective of that, she's not singing about, being very provocative and trying to seduce people into that, though it comes off that way too in the video, of course, and she's just that kind of girl, right? So, but anyway, I think that's really interesting because the energy, she's singing it really, really soft. So check it out. Let's continue to listen.
Or another, I'm gonna see you. I wanna meet you one day, and maybe next week I'm gonna meet you. I'll meet you.
Now, can't you kind of hear the creepiness of it? One day, maybe next week. I'll meet you. She's got this kind of like stalkery vibe as she's singing it. Listen to it again. It's kind of interesting.
Or another, I'm gonna see you.
I'm gonna see ya. I'm gonna meet you. Right? Now, if you notice too, I really pride myself on talking a lot about technical stuff. She's really not supporting at all. She's just one way or another. I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna meet you one day, maybe next week. I know I'm doing different lyrics, but anyway. So if you notice, she's really not singing that hard at all. It's really the band that does all the work. So pretty soon I'm going to put the band in. We're going to listen to it with the band as well. And then I noticed too, they used very, very little effect on her voice. I went back to the original and I noticed they used very, very little effect on the original vocals. So I'm going to add some cheese to it myself if it were me mixing it, kind of contemporizing it in today's, RL or audio file kind of thing. But so as we're listening to this, another thing is that She's going to do the, when the lights are all down, right? She's going to kind of have this kind of yeah kind of sound. But where have we heard that before? Now, if I think, right? Now, I know that that's not the only song that's done that. Steven Tyler's and other bands have done it, but she kind of did it first, right? There weren't a lot of people, maybe Carol Channing or some other people, but there weren't a lot of people doing that sound. So it kind of makes me wonder if some of these other bands were influenced by this, because she was a tremendous influence in the 70s. So anyway, let's continue to listen. Here we
Or
go.
another, I'm gonna see ya. I wanna meet you one day. And maybe next week, I'm gonna meet ya. I'll meet ya. I will drive past your house.
See, I will drive past your house, right? The stalker. Isn't that interesting? I think that's really cool. Puts a whole new spin on it for me. But anyway, so she's got this kind of whiny thing. Now, what I will definitely give her is her pitch is pretty stinking spot on all the way through. And it's just very consistent in the way she sung. Check it out.
I will drive past your house, and if the lights are all down, I'll see who's around.
See, so she, with that in mind, when the lights are all down, right? She's singing it with a creepy vibe. So, and I never really thought of it in that kind of way, other than thinking of being the stalker to the guy, right? And that kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. You probably thought the same thing, I would assume. So anyway, but there was obviously a doubler on that. She double tracked, not a doubler, but she double tracked the vocals just for a little effect. Let's continue.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you.
Now that's actually a gurgle in her throat. I've always wondered, maybe you haven't, that she had like a little phlegm or a little mucus in the throat, but it contributed in such a way that she was kind of going for like a Broadway growl. I'm gonna get you. You know, like a Broadway growl, not like a distorted growl, but kind of like a, I don't know, Christina Aguilera trying to sound distorted, that kind of Broadway growl. But there's kind of mucus in her throat, and it probably was so fitting for the song that they, no, leave it. It's kind of cool, right? Check it out, listen.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way.
You can hear the mucus go in the throat because she growls just before it, and it's clean, and then she's got that spit, and she went, leave it. It's part of the song.
Or another, I'm gonna win you. I'll get you.
I'm gonna win ya. I'll get ya. Right? And we knew that about the song too, because it's a fun part of the song.
One way or another, I'm gonna see ya. I'm gonna meet you one day. Maybe next week, I'm gonna meet ya. I'll meet you.
I'll meet you. And then back to this part again.
I'll meet you. And if...
Now, I never noticed this, but someone put an octave down below. So I kind of got the feeling that there was something down underneath it, because I remember hearing the parts, and we've probably all heard the song a million times, but it never dawned on me that there's an octave below this. Check it out.
I'll meet you. And if the lights are all out.
Now, if you notice, it's an octaver. So way back when there was a mellotron, they didn't have a lot of effects back then. So they had to find some kind of effect. It's not really someone singing it low, because you can hear it from, it's real muffly. There's no clarity to the sound because someone detuned it down a full octave. And that's what you're hearing.
I'll follow your bus downtown, see who's hanging out.
Cool. Then the solo. Let's go to the end.
One way or another.
See, she's, it reminds me of like, like a trombone with a muted trombone or a muted trumpet. She's creating that effect with her voice, which I think is really funny. Let's go to that one more time. Here we go. Check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna give you the slip, or slip or the hip or another. I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna trick ya. I'll trick ya one way or another.
Now, before I go on too much farther in this, don't you guys remember her singing this song heavier than this? I don't remember it just being that chill and kind of relaxed, you know what I mean? And I know the band is going to contribute and play a heavy role in this, but that's the way I remember it.
I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna trick you one way or another. I'm gonna lose ya.
Very
I'm
Broadway.
gonna give you the slip.
Okay, then we come into the end here. Check it out. Let's fast forward here.
I walk down the mall, stand over by the wall where I can see it all, find out who you call, lead you to the supermarket, check out some specials and wrap food, get lost in the crowd. One way or another, I wanna where I can see it all, find out who you call. One way or another, I wanna where I can see it all, find out who you call. One way or another.
Okay, so I mean, that's basically the song, right? Now I want to go back to the top. I want to play a little bit with the track so we can talk about the energy that we just talked about just a second ago. So here's the song with the track. Let me put this in.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. One way or another, I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you. One way or another, I'm gonna see you.
So the energy of the track kind of reminds me like of the Pretenders. Remember Chrissy Hine? You know, she was actually kind of more laid back, but the band was a lot more driving. So the Pretenders and all these bands had this, and these really cool, you know, like there's all kinds of Kinks, you know, they all had that kind of like cool vibe going on. So anyway, so if you listen to it like that, so now listen to it again real quick. I want to show you what I would have done to the lead vocal if I were to try to beef it up a bit. So check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. One way or another, I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you. One way.
Okay, now here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mute the lead vocal. I'm not gonna mute it, excuse me. I'm gonna take the lead vocal and I'm gonna add some effects. So here's the effects that I've added. All I've done was to stay within the nature and the spirit of the song. I didn't add a ton of stuff. I added a bunch of small stuff. Now here's the thing. A lot of people want to get everything out of one effect or two effects. And so they overdo something so much that it's obnoxious. You can really hear it. It just kind of takes away from the vibe of the song, or unless it's an effect that you're deliberately trying to go, you know, I put a big phase shifter on something because that's the effect that you want to have really pronounced and heard. So what I did was I took a really short reverb, one that you can hardly even tell it's there, right? I put that on it. And then the other thing I did, and it's going to sound kind of weird, I copied and pasted her vocal to two separate tracks, kind of like I always do to thicken some things up. But I don't actually put it in the track. I only take the effect or the slap. It's sort of like a super small delay. You could do this with a delay, or you could copy and paste the track. But I took I'm talking a half a frame. Nothing almost, and I panned it like almost hard left and hard right. I did one a half a frame and one almost a full frame. You don't want them to be the same or it gets kind of weird. Anyway, and I didn't use any of that. I just took only the effect of that first room reverb. So I'm feeding it to a bus and then I'm cranking on a bunch of this real short bright room reverb, and then I'm only using the reverb of that to create a reflection so it sounds like that she's singing it like a double track or even a triple track, like she's singing like this, but it's so precise, it doesn't sound double. Does that make sense? So it's really just a reflection of it sounding like her singing a couple, 3 times when it's really only her, and it's just the effect being fed into a reverb. Now, what I learned while I was doing this to lay these buses out is that it kind of the reverb itself cut off too quickly. So I didn't love that. So I took another room reverb and I put it out. So that first room reverb is about 0.7 milliseconds, or 0.5, 0.7 milliseconds. The second room reverb I put on here is almost a millisecond. So it's a little longer, right? Or 10 milliseconds. I'm sorry, not point. Almost 10 milliseconds. So and then I put a pre-delay that's a little bit. Now you guys are going, man, you lost me, Ken. So for you guys out there that don't care about recording, I probably did lose you. That's okay. You guys that are in a recording, you have to set pre-delays for this stuff, or it will get kind of funky in the way it has a phase relation to each other, and the reflection will cancel itself out and get real sloshy. So let me just show you what it sounds like. So you guys that hung in, just check this out. So here's the vocal again with no effect at all. So let's do this as a raw vocal. Check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you.
Now they did have a little bit of room reverb on theirs. Here's mine with a little bit of effect, and check this out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you one way.
Now you're gonna say, well, wait a minute, that sounds too affected, Ken. There's too much effect on that. It takes away from the intimacy and the personalness of the vocal. True, and so what I had to do is, you have to have the track in to be able to see how much effect you can add. And you also have to see how that effect responds in relation to the track itself. If the track is dry, and this track is a pretty dry track, you can't use very much effect at all, and you got to be very careful and very subtle on how you do use this effect. So check it out. Here's with the track and the effect.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you one way or another.
Now, in fairness, I probably am affecting it a little too much than how I would do it if I was doing a record, but I want to go back and forth, and I want you to hear the difference between no effect at all. So here's no effect at all, just the vocal without any.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you one way or another.
Right? So let's do this again. Here's with effect.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I get you, get you, get you, get you one way or another.
Hear the difference?
I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you one way.
And this becomes really more noticeable in a good way when you have something that you want to elevate and make it more powerful. So let's go to the section here where, you know, she gets up right here.
I'm gonna meet you. I'll meet you. I will drive past your house, and if the lights are on,
Here's with effect now. Check it out.
I will drive past your house, and if the lights are all down, I'll see who's around.
So you can see it's these are subtle things, but everything matters. So I'm not trying to get one thing out of one box. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 effects with a tiny little bit of delay on it too. So I'm subtly using 5 different effects to get the sound that I'm looking for, rather than just taking up, you know, one room reverb. Now it's also true too if you're using a really expensive reverb, you know, like an old 4080L, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of really great old reverbs, but if you're using an old, you know, $10,000 reverb, you can get out of 2 motor drives out of an old reverb, an old Lexicon or something, you can get almost all the effect you're looking for because those effects are so clean. But I want to talk to you really quickly about these effects, guys. Hang in there for you audiophiles out there. You guys else that just wanted the song, you could split. But I want to talk to you audio guys. So when reverbs are sampled, memory has always been an issue, and also the way that the reverb sample was created, okay? And reverbs, if you notice, what they do most of the time is they'll say, okay, concert hall or long hall or stadium or bright room or plate or this or that, and they'll give you these descriptions of what the reverb's supposed to sound like. Now, most of the time, not all the time, and the more expensive the reverb, the more they don't do this. They give you individual settings. Let me explain what I mean. So what'll happen is in a long reverb, they'll take a sample of a reverb. It's big, long reverb. And let's say that reverb, being big and long, takes a lot of memory, a lot of algorithm, and a lot of DSP power within whatever you plug in, or, you know, whatever they're using, right? So what they'll do is they'll take a long reverb and then they'll shorten it. Well, think about what happens when you shorten the reverb it makes the reverb more dense. So if it's a big, beautiful, fat sounding reverb, not something real thin, right, and tinny, but if it's a big fat reverb, if you shorten that reverb, you notice that that reverb starts to have buildup of frequencies, usually around the 350, 400 range for voice, and it becomes kind of muffly and thick and tubby, and it sort of starts to sound kind of like it's in a bathroom rather than a big, beautiful concert hall. So the more you shorten the reverb, you find out, okay, I have to dump out all this EQ of all this anomaly of it being thick by shortening or compressing that reverb or making it more dense. Now, more expensive reverbs don't do that. What they do is, if it's a short room, they get a short room, they sample a short room. If it's a big room, they sample a big room. Now, let me give you an example of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly what I used and how I used it. So here is, I'm going to pull out all the reverbs. All I'm going to do is start with the very, very first one that I used. And I think you guys will really appreciate this. So the first one was just a bright room. So I created a room for this sound. Now I'm going to over exaggerate this a little bit, but I want you to be able to hear this sound that I created that I talked to you guys about. And I had to set my pre-delays of each reverb a little bit farther out each time for the 3 different reverbs that I'm using. So check it out. Here, in fact, I want to go back to the top of the song. So here's the first one that I used.
One way or another.
Oops, I'm sorry. That's a little bit longer one. My bad. Next one. Here we go. This is this one here, right here. So here's a brighter tone. Check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way.
Now, in fairness, again, she already had a little reverb on her vocal, so it's kind of making it sound like it's a longer reverb than the reverb really is, because her reverb's bleeding into my reverb and pushing that reverb sound a little farther out, okay? So this is actually a really short reverb, 0.7, somewhere right in there. So listen to it again.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one.
And what that did for me is it made it just sound kind of like a really good vocal booth, right? I'm just in a nice sounding room, almost like a tile room, but not too exaggerated where there's too much reflection or it's too echoey, okay? So that's the first one. I'm gonna pull that one down. The second one that I created was this one here. Here we go.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way.
Now that's kind of like a hall. I created a hall. Now if you notice, if you guys listen really careful, I set the pre-delay out pretty far on that one, like 20 some odd milliseconds, I think it was, compared to the first one. So you don't, when you hear the reverb, yeah, and it pushes it out. So the first reverb comes in with the room that we hear, yeah, right? So we get both very distinct sounds of the reverbs. Now let me add them both for a second so you can hear what they both sound like together. So here's that one and this one. Check it out. And I'm adding a lot to it. Like I wouldn't add this much in the track, but I want you to really be able to hear the reverb. Check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way.
Now, I also EQ'd out quite a bit of low end from the reverb. So around 400 cycles down, I just hit a low pass filter, just kind of notched most of it out, okay? So there's not a lot of low end. So that's not the original reverb like some factory setting. It's a reverb I created, okay? Now, I also, again, in fairness, I used reverbs that were sampled at a smaller, shorter rate than trying to grab a long reverb, condensing it, getting all the thickness and the unwanted buildup of different frequencies. Now, I did use a long reverb, so let me pull these ones out for a second so you don't hear them, okay? And then let me put in the long reverb that I added. So here I created a concert hall for it as well.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another.
You hear it's almost like the second reverb, but the pre-delay is even farther, around 40 milliseconds out, and it's pushing it out even farther just for more dimensional space, okay? I won't use that one really loud because I don't want it to sound like it's sloshing around in a bunch of reverb, but what it does is it takes the other two reverbs and it mellows them out to make everything just sound like a lot of beautiful reverb sound. Now, let's put them all together so you can hear there's 1, 2, and 3. So we're gonna do this here, so check this out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you.
Now, you're gonna say, well, Ken, that's an absolute gob of reverb. Are you really gonna use that much reverb in the track? Well, let's put up the track and listen to the track with it alone. So now listen to it. It's gonna be almost imperceptible, except I just pointed it out to you so you know what to look for. But check this out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna see you. I wanna meet you one.
Right? So a lot of the reverb gets sucked up once the track comes in. So you gotta have the track up. Again, it's not perfect, and I'd have to really listen to it. And by one more thing that happens too, when you compress, and I compress a lot, so I'm already compressed through here. I'm using a Shep, which is one of the world's greatest compressors. It's kind of like 1173. It's 23609. It's like a Neve compressor. And then I'm also using a freestanding L2. So I've got 3 different compressors going on at this time too. And compression actually makes your reverbs a lot louder. So you gotta be careful. I recommend that when you mix this stuff, you mix into your compressor and then you put some phones on, or you really know that you're hearing your final end mix. So when it gets compressed, you're not using too much reverb and all the reverbs become really loud. That's very, very, very important. Trust me on that. And it doesn't matter what instrument. I'm talking about vocals. It could be snare drums. It could be, it doesn't matter, guitar, whatever it is. Just be careful as you're doing that, as you have your mix together, that you're really listening to how much, when the compression kicks in, how much it's accentuating the reverbs. Now, one more thing that I did, in addition to that, I want to come back here. I want to pull everything out again. I'm just going to take all the reverbs out real quick. Is I added a delay, a little bit of delay that's left, center, and right. So, and I set it to the tempo of the song. So here's the delay.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you.
Now, I put that in really subtly on the bottom, just because I like to have it kind of glued together. Because I noticed when the track went by, as I was listening to it, even with the reverbs that I had, it didn't have quite enough. It sounded like the phrases got cut off too short, and just sounded like it was so dry. I felt like I wanted to drink a glass of water after listening to the mix. And I like mixes that are big personally, and I like them intimate too. I do all kinds of different things. But so now let's add all of these reverbs, including the delay. But one more thing I told you that I did. I took this other reflection reverb, and we talked about that at the beginning. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you just the reflection that I added, this reflection thing here, with no effect for a second, so you can hear it. Listen.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna win you.
You hear that?
I'm gonna get you one way.
Now, that's the actual effect that I use, but I don't use that in the track. I send that to that first room reverb to make it sound like this. Check this out. And I know this is live. I'm hoping that you audiophile guys out there are appreciating this, because all this stuff really matters when you have a mix together. They're so subtle and they're so cool the way they sit within a track. So let's check this out. So here we have we have everything together, actually. Just say it that way. Here we go.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you.
Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to take, just to show you the doubler effect with the raw vocal alone. So check this out. Here we go.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another.
Now that's what I put into the first reverb. So now let's hear all of this together with that effect in it. Check it out.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you.
Here's with nothing again, so we have a reference.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you.
Here's with everything.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you.
Here's with everything and the track. Check this out. Let's see, track is on 11, 12. Here we go. Ta-da!
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you one way or another. I'm gonna.
A lot of information for you guys, you audiophiles out there. Anyway, gang, thank you for joining me, and definitely check out my next video.
I'll meet you.